Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to NTV's weekly talk show, Talking Point. I'm your host, Neaz Ahmed. In our studios today, we have a young lady who is a fashion designer, Rukia Ullah. She has been working in London for quite some time. She graduated from the London University, and she has her own fashion house in a way, and we'll talk about all those things in a moment or two. Back to Rukia. Rukia, thank you very much for coming along today.
It's okay.
And braving the weather, the London weather, the treacherous.
Yeah, I think it's got to me.
Let us, for the benefit of our viewers, can you just trace back your steps? How did this journey begin?
So my journey into design was, at a young age, where I just sort of sketch and paint. It was a hobby, something I enjoyed, it was fun. But then when I got to my sort of stage where I had to decide what I wanted to do with my life in terms of GCSEs, a very long time ago, I'm pretty sure you're aware of, of ideas our society has about profession and things like that, being a doctor or a lawyer. I thought in my head, I've got to be a doctor or a lawyer, maybe a lawyer. So I'll do courses that leads me to that. But on the side, I also did art. It was more fine art. At the end of it, I came to a conclusion that I didn't really enjoy the lawyer and things like that. It's not something I'd probably do well in. It's something that I'd be happy with. So I went on to do a BTEC, National Art and Design course, 2 years at college, just designing sort of fine art, a bit of textiles as well.
Right.
I really enjoyed it. I would say it was like the best 2 years of my 2 years I was really just allowed to do what I want, and I designed to how I wanted to design. I experimented with materials, but at the end of it I realized I really, really enjoyed print, and print could be on anything, but I like print on fabric. So what do? I'll go on to print and see where that leads me. So I then went into a foundation course at the University of London, the London College of Communication, University of the Arts London, and I started a course, a foundation in surface design, where I experimented with photography, ceramics, and textiles as well. So then I went on to doing a full-on degree at the college, doing surface design, where I spent my time screen printing.
Right.
Yeah.
This term, surface design, always I find it intriguing. What is surface design? When you say surface design, you're only designing the surface. You're not talking about the pottery itself, the ceramics.
No, it's pretty much it's a question that I always get all the time. It's pretty much the print on the surface. It could be on ceramics, so it could be on tiles, it could be on cups or plates, it could be on paper, it could be on wood, it could be, emboss something, you could be cutting things out. But what I personally looked at was fabrics, how I could manipulate the fabric, whether to dye it, whether to burn it, whether to add color to it, or to print on it. That's what I loved. I loved experimenting. I liked the idea of just sort of changing the fabric from a plain white fabric to a colourful one with a print on it. Yeah. So if you look at my boxes of samples, you find little pieces of samples of me just experimenting. It was something I really enjoyed. But the fashion came into it when I started working at the Students' Union at my college, and I looked at clothing in a different way, and I wondered why people wore a certain type of clothes, material, why they held their, I used to work at London College of Fashion as a receptionist for a while, and I'd have someone come up to me with their Louis Vuitton bags and their Chanel bags and their pre-cut tops, things like that. I wondered to myself, why do clothing have such a hierarchy thing? Why would you spend £600 on a top or a bag? And I wondered, the reason people spend more money is because the quality behind the material itself. I'd be shopping in Primark because I couldn't afford those big things, but then I wondered, if I'd bought a more of a pricey item, how long would that last me, and
True.
where did it come from? So I started looking at the materials of in that sense. Yeah.
Right. How would you describe the word fashion?
Fashion.
Yeah.
I'd say quite unique, quite sort of out there, and I would say individual.
Right.
Yeah.
See. So it's in an individual statement. When
Yeah.
a man or a woman goes out, finds things from a rack or from a particular boutique shop.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, you know, you should follow as is, like, oh, this magazine says you should wear this top with this bottom. I would say take the top and see what you can do with it, see how you can add a different era to that that look, how you can mix and match.
No, I see.
That's fashion for me.
See,
It's how you put it
that
together.
becomes your individual style.
Yes, yeah.
But the clothes are being designed by somebody else, produced by some other company, but that is your individual style that you want to.
It's nice to look at the history as well.
Right.
I mean, a lot of vintage clothing are very much in trend. Like, you'd go to places like Shoreditch and buy, they're quite pricey these days.
Yes.
A worn top or a worn jacket is very expensive, just as expensive as a new top, but that worn top has a history. Where did it come from? Where was it made? And I like looking at that. You know, the more to just the garment, you know, how it's made, the colour, things like that. I look at the fabric itself, the print, and how I can maybe take it on and make it my own.
Yeah. I remember once in Brighton, the famous lanes of Brighton, see, and they were selling such good, nice shops. They were selling second-hand jeans, see, and just out of curiosity, I went in. And they were priced at 35, 40 pounds, you see, and they were second-hand jeans, you see.
Like Levi jeans.
Yes.
Yeah, it's to do with the quality, I think. Like, if you go down Brick Lane these days, you'd have the Levi jeans, exactly the same prices. I think if you go buy a brand new one, it'll be a bit more expensive. But if you look at the old one, it's the workmanship, like the way it's been put together, and its history that people really appreciate these days.
Does it come with a history that who used it?
Who's used it, and the fact that it's worn. I mean, I know it sounds a bit wrong, and people will say, well, why are you going to wear someone else's clothes? But it's got history. It's. I think I come from an arty background, that's why I can appreciate it. But for a normal person, it'd be like, why are you going to do that?
More hygienic.
You'd wash it before you worn it, I think.
Yeah. Tell us about your label, Rukia.
Yeah. So my label, so it's Rukia Ullah. I'm just working on the site now.
What do you make? A scarf, or dresses?
Yeah, I have scarves. So it's a mixture. It's a small collection. It's one that I built on for a couple of months now. I wanted to make it practical. I wanted to make it modest. My target aim isn't just the Muslim woman, Bengali. My aim is to look at mainstream and how Bengalis are perceived by a non-Bengali for the mainstream. I mean, if you tell someone, oh, you're Bangladeshi, they'll be like, well, is that in India? And I say, no, it's not. You know, we have our own country. People don't know it because I don't feel we put ourselves enough out there for people to recognize us. And I like the idea of taking...
don't blame yourself for their lack of education, because a lot of people are just lazy.
Yeah, but I think, you know, we should do also enough to show that this is what we have to offer. I think certain designers use that as a selling point. I've used that as my unique selling point. The fact that my clothes are inspired by Bangladesh. I took prints of rickshaws and I made them my own because my background is print, and I put them in a way on a fabric that will be, it's a luxurious item. It can be worn by pretty much anybody. You can make it an evening and a day thing. It's practical, but it's inspired by Bangladesh, and I've put it together in a way that is quite modern and it's not traditional. Does that make sense?
You have worked on silk produced in Bangladesh. Have you also worked on jamdani and other products?
I've looked into jamdani. I haven't yet, unfortunately, but inshallah I'd like to. I've gone to I've gone to like where they weave Jamdani. I've met the weavers there. It's something that I'd pretty much like to consider, using in my designs. Nakshikata, using them on actual garments than it being a cloth embroidery. So that's what I'd like to take the traditional and make it quite modern. That's something I've been looking at in my next collection.
That would be a good idea to market Bangladesh.
Exactly,
because then people who come across, where is Bangladesh? Well, this is it. See, we produce these things.
Yeah, we're here.
Presently, you are a print designer and photographer at Islamic Design House, isn't it? What does that involve?
It involves many things. So I am involved in photography of the latest collections. So when we do have a collection out, it's up to me to present them in a visual way, and I would present a concept, and I would actually photograph them. I would put the props together, the concepts together, and then photograph them at the end, which is it's a lot of fun because I get to meet the models.
The models don't come in there, do they?
Sorry?
Models don't come in the picture there, do they?
In
I mean,
the picture?
you are involved with the photography.
I'm behind the camera.
Okay,
They're in front of the camera. They have to obviously pose and wear the garments in a certain way to reflect the concepts. But I also design prints for them. So the previous collection of prints was mine. So I designed a collection of 10 designs, and the new collection is also partially my designs as well. So if you go on the website, you'll see the designs. They did quite well, alhamdulillah. So the next collection I did as well. They're mainly print, because my background is print, so they're hijabs. They're hijabs that reflect an identity of a woman, basically. There's no pictures, it's just, I've done florals, I've done blocks, colours, a different take to the hijab. Because these days I find that we would go to Whitechapel Market, spend £3 on a hijab, but what does that say about your hijab, the quality and how you appreciate your hijab? So we have them hand screen printed in India to show the personal side to the hijab. We put them on silk as well. You don't get hijab on silk these days because silk is quite pricey and not everyone wants to spend money on silk. But we like the idea of you appreciating what you're wearing, and it doesn't have to be a very cheap item to reflect who you are. You care for yourself and you care for your identity. That's the idea.
Who do you think, when you said that it was pretty successful, your designs, what determines that? I mean, they sell well?
They sell quite well, and the reviews were quite good. They've sold out, so they did well, alhamdulillah. So because the prints are quite different, if you compare my prints to prints I used to get in Whitechapel, wherever, they're not the same. My prints go along with concepts, and there's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of research behind them. I do pre-sketches, pre-painted, and there's a lot of build-up to them, and there's a lot of sampling involved.
And what materials do you use?
We use very practical materials. I mean, you have the polyester, the viscose, silk. Those are the common ones. Viscose because it can stay on your head quite well. We've started printing on, inshallah, we'll do it on jersey, which is jersey quite thick, especially for the winter. It's nice, but we're actually in the stage of just sampling on that.
And your products are available in shops here in London?
They are available online, UK. They are available in shops in Jordan, Egypt, South Africa and America. In shops there.
In shops, is it?
Yeah.
You're not designing caps for men?
Not yet, no, unfortunately, no. Maybe
well, all this time that we have talked about, the male fashion has not come into the picture, see?
No, it's not something I've looked at. It's because I'd like the idea of just building on what I've got at the moment and feeling happy with the way my collection's gone. And then when I've done that and I'm happy with the way the women's wear's gone, I'd be happy to launch menswear.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we will have to take a commercial break. And when we come back, we'll continue with our discussion. Thank you for being with us. Don't go away, we'll be back soon.